talk about more phonological rules, and you guys will have to practice using this worksheet. It would be very, okay, last time we talked about some sounds tend to be more like their neighbor, and in some other cases you want to be less like your neighbor. Can you think of why you want to be more like your neighbor in terms of sounds? 以声音来说是 ease of articulation, easier to articulate. And why do you want to dissimulate from your neighbor? What example did we use last time? Sixth, right? You have two fricative together, so you want to change one of that to a stop or some other sounds. So it will also make it easier for others to understand you, right? If you have two sisters at the same time, it's much harder for them to pick up what those segments are. So the motivation for dissimulation could be from ease of articulation or for the clearance of your perception. So now you should, whenever we talk about human language, you should always think about two aspects, production and perception. Perception is just the part that your ears are picking up the signal and understand it through the neurotransmission into your brain, and you're understanding it. Production and perception. So we're going to start our problem analysis. Yes, this is not a quiz, but it's fun. We're going to first look at Cree. Cree is a language spoken in Canada. It spread from Alberta to the east of Alberta. I used to, this is where I did my postdoc at UBC in Vancouver. Your job is to find out and tell me, in terms of the sounds k and g, do you think they're separate phonemes? Do you think they're phonemic? Do you think they're contrastive? Or they're just variants of one sound? If it's the later case, can you tell me what that underlying form should be and tell me the environment for one of the variants to happen? Easy way is sometimes to list the environment for k and g. You can start by listing the sound in front and after your target sound. So if you want to do the soon in Cree, where is that k? It's at the beginning of a word. When it's a word boundary, we use a pound sign. It's like a pound sign. So it's at the beginning of the word, followed by an e sound. And gradually, we just sort of omit that k, and you can list all the environment for k. It can be after a word boundary, and then before o, and then you find the next k. It's after a s, before a u. So you list two columns, and then once you list those two columns, I can bet you that you can find the environment for the sounds. And this is when those highlighters come handy. You can circle all the K sound and then in red, and then circle all the G in green. How convenient. What do you think is the variant that happen in more restricted environment? 哪一个的那个发声比较受限？ G. When would you ever have G? Between two vowels. And do you think it makes sense in the kingdom of sounds when an innocent voiceless K is surrounded by two voiced vowels? It turns that voiceless K into a voiced G. Do you think that makes sense? Yeah. So that's what happened. So all you have to do is just write there are allophones, and for G sound, so this is how you write your phonological rules. So you can just say, well, the underlyingly, deep down, they're both k. The k change into g. We use the bracket to represent the surface form. So again, this is the underlying form, and this is the surface form. In the environment of two vowels, when you write two vowels like this, in the future, when you're much better at features, you can even say plus vocalic. We haven't talked about vocalic yet, right? Officially. We'll talk about it today. So you can just say it's between two vowels. Now, let's talk about that flap in American English. When will you ever have flap as a variant of T? 你什么时候会得到那个 flap? Ladder. Okay, and what else? So what's the environment for that T in ladder? It's after a vowel, and in front of that, Is it or just like Rachel? I think it's So, well, it's actually a combination of the schwa and the So, the environment for a flap to happen is you need to be between two vowels, and the first vowel need to be stressed. That's crucial. You can examine all other T's. If it's not in this context, it most likely won't be turned into a flap. Okay, so it needs to be in between two vowels, and the first vowel needs to be stressed. Let's move on to a language you might know a little bit more. Japanese. Have you heard of Japanese having different dialects? 关西口音, 关东口音. Eastern Japanese, Western Japanese, and their Ryukyu dialects. Ryukyu, the Okinawa area is so close to Taiwan, and it has its own dialect and have some different features different from the mainland Japanese. And Hokkaido has its own dialect, and this one I've never heard of, Hachujo dialect. So people has the Western Japanese dialect sometimes would be frowned upon in Tokyo area because it's a different dialect they're speaking there. Here are some Japanese words. Can you pronounce number 5 as long? Long road, long. I found it very distinct when you're traveling in Tokyo, those densha announcement. Nagai, nagai. It's not nagai. It's nagai. Yeah. So your task is to tell me. I'm sorry, I didn't change the g sound. It should be the typical j, the g sound. Now, can you tell me g and ng? Are they separate phonemes or allophones of the same phoneme? So which one do you think has a more limited, narrowed environment? Nga. In English, you can call it ingma, or just say nga, nga. And where do you get nga? It's between two vowels, yes. The next case we're going to work on is Korean. Can you tell me if an unaspirated T and aspirated T are phonemic in Korean? Can you find any minimal pairs in this data set? Do you all see it? Mask and moon. Yeah, that's your minimal pair, quite shy. There you have the ta. And actually, Korean, any of you who are learning Korean right now, in Mandarin and English, we have two-way distinction. This is a word you have to know. Our stops have two-way distinction, meaning that for a same place of articulation, usually we have two different const stops. So you have b and p, that's the same place of articulation, right? You have two of them. And then you have d and t, that's another pair. And then you have g and k. But in Korean, it's a three-way distinction. And it's super difficult to distinguish those three because one of them is you're supposed to pronounce it with the stronger intensity. So for who are learning Korean, you should know that the three-way distinction in Korean is not easy to pick up for non-native speakers. There are separate phonemes. That's an easy one. Now let's look at German. This is slightly challenging. Now I want you to look at the column X and column Y. What do you think these two columns are different? How are they different? Plural. Y is the plural form for X, right? But they look slightly different. What's happening here? Is it K become G when between two vowels? We're looking at German, and German has Low German, Central German, and Upper German. Those are the dialects of German. and part of Switzerland also speak German. So I want you to look at X and Y and tell me what's happening here. Do you think the singular form is this, and when you want to pluralize it, you add a schwa and then that turns into a g, or there's something else going on? There are two hypotheses that we can work on here. So one is there is an intervocalic voicing. When you're in between two voiced, especially vowels, when you're in between two vowels, you become a voiced segment. Or there is another possibility that when you are the last segment, you devoice yourself. Which one do you think it is in this case? 你们觉得是哪一个？你们每一个都推看。如果你觉得是第一个 hypothesis， 所有的 data 都 match 这个 hypothesis 吗？如果你觉得是第二个 hypothesis， 所有的 data 都 match 这个吗？ Okay, which one do you think it is? Is it intervocalic voicing or is it final devoicing? Who vote for number 1? Whose vote goes to number 1? Okay, whose vote goes to number 2? Okay. For those who vote for number 2, can you find counter evidence for number 1 to happen? Number 1就是说，好，我的 underlying form 是 talk， 然后我要加复数的时候呢，因为它夹在两个母音中间，所以 voicing， make sense, right? 可是你有没有看到证据是不符合这件事情的？ Oh yeah, look at this. If the rule is add a schwa to make it plural and intervocalic, do an intervocalic voicing, this should turn into the. It should be Rosa, horse, Rosa. Yeah. So the intervocalic voicing hypothesis doesn't work. How about final devoicing? The idea is for final devoicing to happen, you're proposing that, well, underlyingly it's tag. So when you want to pluralize it, you add schwa. But when it's by itself, all along, being the last segment of a word, you can say it's assimilating to the empty, the silence, the endless silence after it. So that gives you, well, you're assimilating to now, nothing. So what's happening here in German is all those voiced obstruents. So you got a g and z and g. They got devoiced and turned into a voiceless k. And if it's a d, it turns into t, and so on and so forth. So that's the case. If that's the case, we're agreeing. So are we all good with the final devoicing rule in German? It happened in German and it happened in Dutch, and I think in Russian as well. It's a very common phonological rule. Now, if that's the case, can you predict the singular form of this? What do you think this is? Do you know what this word means? Can you pronounce it? You have p and f and l. This is an amazing consonant cluster. Do you know which company make the Viagra medicine? Pfizer. That's a major pharmaceutical company. Yeah, so German has this consonant cluster that's difficult to pronounce. So in this case, I think it's plum. No, I mean English word is plum, but pronounced as plum. I don't know how to do this. So can you predict the singular? Well, it's not prediction. According to the rule, can you predict the singular form of these three words? In phonology, you're supposed to solve problems and make a guess. This is the plural form. What do you think the singular form is? RAT? Do you think rada would change into rot? RAT? Do you all agree? Yes. How about the first one? PFLUM. Can you devoice a M? No. M doesn't have a voiceless component, counterpart. So it's just plume. And then the second one is rot. How about the third one? Han, how do you spell it? Yes, your final B, which is also a voiced obstruent. In the final devoicing rule, it only affects the voiced obstruents. And B is a voiced obstruent, and you change when it's at the end. When it's at the end, remember this pound sign represents your word boundary. 就是那个字，那个就是说我在字的最后面那个地方。So instead of writing g changing into k or z changing into s, you can simplify the rule. When it's plus voiced, plus obstruent, it turns into you become minus voice and plus obstruent when it's at the end of the word, in the environment of the end of the word. Okay, that's why we need the features. If you don't have the features and to come up with this combination of features, you will have to write them separately. It depends on how many voiced obstruents you have. You will have to write that many rules. Okay, we'll do the English one. This should be easy for you. So in the future, if you ever become an English teacher, you should just tell your student, T is the best example for allophones in English, especially in this case, American English. So I have 12 words there, and they have 6 different patterns of pronunciation. Can you just put them in the corresponding table? In terms of the pronunciation for T. Well, you guys should know kitten and button belongs to the same pair, right? They are pronounced with glottal stop. So in number 1, you can say kitten and button. And then their environment is it's after a vowel before a syllabic nasal. Okay, so what are your answers? Better? What's the T sound in better? What's the surface form of the T in better? It's a flap. Good, you're remembering the name. And the angle of that hook is facing to the right or left? Right. Yes. And which one of these also have the flap? Which one of these words? Pitted. That gives you an example. It's not just before it's between 2 vowels. 所以你可以后面有一个 sound or another vowel will give you the flap T. How about kit? Kit with cat. Thank you. And they are what kind of T? Well, it could be normal T, and you can do it with the unreleased T too, right? Cat, without releasing it. So, yes. I guess in this case, yeah, you can write a regular T or T with the unreleased sign. It's free variation in this case. For kit, and then flap for a butter. Glottal stop for kitten. Okay, next, T? Which T is like T? Which T is like the T in T? Top. Top and T. Which T is this? It's T with aspiration. Okay? Now, I'll start with something easier. How about stinct? Stinct. Is that a word? Okay, stinct. Oh, I'm asking about this one. Oh, let's change this into stink. How about that? Stink. Is this how you say stink? Stink. Okay, how about this T? After the S sound, it's the same as the stool. This T is a regular T without aspiration. This is the T. So this T is different from T. This is T with aspiration. This is T without aspiration. Okay? And then the last one is the one that you haven't learned before. The T in tree and trunk. Feel that T. Because there's R after it, so your lips are actually rounded. It almost feels like you're saying ch sound. Tree, tree, ch, 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 ch. So it's a T. You can say it's a little bit palatalized. Your T is a little bit further back. It's not T. When you say tree, try say tree. Tree, and then do T. Let's do T first and then tree. T, 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 and then tree. Can you feel that the second T is further back? A little bit back. When it's at the front part of your mouth and then you're retracting it. We sometimes say it's palatalized. You're approaching the palatal area. So when you want to show that it's palatalized, you add a tiny J as a superscript. T 上面有一个小 J. Tree, tree, tree. Okay, that's about it. I think that's all the T variants that we can think of. Now I want to introduce you another term. I had it on here, but I erased it. So in the future, remember I told you about transcription. Transcription is you're saying things and then another person can transcribe it using IPA. 把声音用文字写下来，尤其是声音 it's called transcription. Now, English or any kind of language transcription can be divided into two kinds. You can do a broad transcription or a narrow transcription. Okay, now imagine you want to do the transcription for the word pot. How would you transcribe it into IPA? P, A, T. Okay? This is what we call a broad. This is what we call broad transcription. If you want to do a narrow transcription, you have to be very specific about exactly how you pronounce it. So if you want to do a narrow transcription, what would it be like? P with aspiration, right? And then A and T. And depends on how that person say it. If the person say pot, without releasing it, you will have to do this. Okay? Now let's try again. How about the word can? So if you want to show it's a word, how do you do a broad transcription for can? K, E, N. Now if it's a narrow transcription, can. It's at the beginning of the word. It has to be aspirated. So it's the aspiration. And then you have the N, can. Are we missing something? Tilde. remember in American English, in most form of English, when a vowel is followed by a nasal sound, the vowel is contaminated. It could become nasalized. Okay, so if you want to mimic a certain accent, you need to be able to do narrow transcription. You need to know these tiny diacritics to help you do the narrow transcription. So I forgot to mention the German devoicing rule. Just again, German has both voice and voiceless obstruents, but they occur at the end of when they occur at the end of the words. The voiced one become voiceless. Okay, voiced obstruent become voiceless. How would you pronounce this name? I actually just pronounced it. It's Nijmegen. How would you pronounce it? Consider that German and Dutch are actually very consistent in terms of their alphabet and pronunciation. So I thought that we can use this as an opportunity for you to look at how Wikipedia describe languages. So in the future, now that you're halfway through our phonetics and phonology class, you can just go to Wikipedia and type in any language and add phonology. Now, did you notice that there are no interdental fricatives? 有没有 the and 没有 the? So that would become a problem when they learn it in a second language. Can you pronounce this M with a hook? It's the labial dental. It's the sound when you say comfortable. Think about when you say comfortable. Do you actually say comfortable, or you do comfortable? Yeah, I can see that your mouth are not completely closed. You say comfortable. You don't do you don't close your mouth completely. So, and they're saying that, oh, these are not separate phonemes in Dutch. That makes sense to you now, right? And then it's an allophone of m and before f and v. Yeah. What I'm looking for is in Dutch, there's no true g sound. G, sh, and j are not native phonemes of Dutch. G only occur in borrowed words like goal or other cases. So the place name I'm trying to make you pronounce, I'm not sure about the vowel after the n, but the g sound in it's pronounced as a velar fricative. It's pronounced as velar fricative. So it's not Nijmegen. Can you do a velar fricative? Nijmegen. It's voiceless. Nijmegen. Oh, I love that trio. Yeah, when you're doing velar or uvular fricative, it's very easy for you to pronounce it as a trio. I pull out irrelevant things today. So this is Holland, and then this is Germany. And I just want to point out that some people said that Cecile Rhodes said that to be born as an Englishman is to win first prize in the lottery of life. But that's in the old days. Now we're done with the problem set. I want to talk to you more about other phonological rules. Now, can you pronounce these words? The first one is where I got my degree from, University of Kansas. Okay. Now, the second one is also a state where William Clinton is from. It's Do you pronounce the last S? In Kansas, you do. Yes, Kansas. It's actually an Algonquin name. It's a Native American tribe name, so it's Kansas. And Arkansas. Actually, there are two different pronunciations, but nowadays it's also a tribe name. But because French people were there, and when they pronounced the Arkansas, guess how? I'll continue this. Now we don't know how you pronounce this. How about this? Do you have the S in your pronunciation? You're not supposed to. I did it when I was first arrived in America, but it's just Illinois. Okay? Now this one. I want to eat Do you pronounce the final T? No. How about this one? I have a very famous store that's called Office Depot. Yeah, it's a station building. And do you know what FILLET is? You know, in the States, they don't usually eat the entire fish. They sort of cut them into tiny fillet. You don't pronounce the final T. So you can go to a store and say, oh, I want some fish fillet, chicken fillet, or whatever fillet. How about this? In American pronunciation, it's pronounced as Paris. And in French pronunciation, it's yes. Oh, okay. Can those people who speak French compare these two words, the English pronunciation Paris with the French pronunciation Paris? So is that P the same as the Paris P? It's what kind of P? It's unaspirated, good. And then A, and then that R is also different. That's apparently a fricative or a uvular fricative. And they don't pronounce the final S. So this is a rule that we call deletion. So apparently in French language and in those places they have been to, like the Illinois and Arkansas, they apply their phonological rules to those names. That's why some of these names, you just have to pronounce them without the final consonant. And it's called deletion, and the jargon for it is syncope. 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 I just want to introduce the name. Okay, that's deletion. So it's not that you delete all the consonants, the final consonant in French. You delete it when it's the last word and there's nothing after it. But if there's another word starts with a vowel or a glide, you have to have that consonant there to transit to say the second word. We'll talk about it later. So for those who are learning French, how do you remember the rule of which one that you delete and then which one you don't? It's not as clear-cut as those rules that we have been written about. So I found this tip from the internet, and I want to verify with you guys. It's just saying that most of the obstruents, you do delete them, but these are the cases that you don't. So the tip is to remember the word be careful. And don't delete all those consonants in be careful. So you have the B, C, R, F, L. Those are the consonants you don't delete. Is it true? But just remember, in most cases in French, especially those S and T sounds, when they're in isolation, you don't pronounce them. That's how you get fillet, buffet, and depot. And but when there is another word after it, and it starts with a vowel, you will need that S if that vowel is like R. So just remember, those final consonants are in most cases deleted, but if there is another word after it and it starts with a vowel or glide, you just need to pronounce that final consonant. Okay, if there is deletion, there is insertion. Do you pronounce this Do you do interesting or do you do interesting? Yeah, and you're deleting that schwa. There should be a schwa. Oh, schwa. That's your schwa. A student just sent me a picture and say, I want to be a schwa. It's never stressed. In English, you never stress a schwa vowel because it's very light. schwa 那个字很轻很短. So those schwa tend to be deleted without you realizing it. Are there cases that you pronounce this as please, please, please? Well, when you say it very quickly, You sometimes delete that schwa in police. It's also a schwa. So be careful with those schwas. They tend to be deleted when you're pronouncing them. How about these? This is one of the authors of the PDF that I posted. How would you say the name? Fromkin. Can you say it very quickly? Are you inserting something in between the M and K? Maybe this is more clear. This is one type of rodent, 一种小老鼠, 一种老鼠. Can you say it very quickly? Hamster, hamster, hamster. Do you feel there's a P in there? Yes. Hamster, hamster. So, people tend to misspell the word within a P because you're inserting a P in the pronunciation. Oh, I should make you do dance. Now, if you do dance, 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 dance. Dance seems you don't insert T in your dance. Yeah, the reason why some would have T in here is because when you're doing the N sound, your tongue is in position to do the T, right? 有没有 N 跟 T 其实是 the same place of articulation. And when you're about to do S, well, why not insert a T in between? So these are insertions that you're not aware of. Okay, dance, hamster, hamster. This is another new term. It's called metathesis. Stress is on the second syllable. Metathesis. Metathesis. Remember, in the future, it doesn't matter which language you want to learn. You want to know where the stressed syllable is. That will get you the right position. Metathesis. It reorders the sequence of phonemes. So, how do you pronounce this? I bet you there are people saying X, X. I want to X you. X, ask. But it's very easy that people just reorder the sound. And then at some point, the metathesis rule occurred and switched the order of these two. That's how it became ask. So these are the phonological rules that we have introduced. Assimilation is to be more like your neighbor, and you can also dissimilate from your neighbor. And sometimes you delete sounds without realizing it. And sometimes you do insertion. And sometimes you even swap your sounds. So these are the phonological rules that are super common in languages of the world. And well, I have a couple more examples to tell you that what's phonemic in one language is not necessarily phonemic in another. So these are Thai languages. Words. Does this mean that you make your vowel longer when you have two A, two R? You were doing ba and then all forest ba. It's also a tone language. Okay, how about this? To pound, dumb, dumb. How about to bite? To bite, 咬. So, did you see that the K, it's not K, it's unaspirated, got. Okay, how about to split? Pa. 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 很像我们的 pa. How about to do? Tum. 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 And then to interrupt. 打断. Cut. Cut. 切. What's phonemic, what not, is language specific. Remember the term language specific, okay? It's specific or it's university. In the future, you can say this rule is university specific. Okay, and in Spanish too. Well, these two sounds, the and the and the, are they contrastive in English? So they're contrastive. Da-da. But in Spanish, they're not. When it's word initial or other area, you pronounce it as a D. When it's between vowels, you pronounce it as a the. But I think this only occurs in Spanish. Yeah. You guys actually, so for those who are learning Spanish, you do realize that Spanish spoken in Spain is different from the Spanish spoken in South America. They're dialects. They're mutually understandable, but they're different phonological rules. Okay, so I think this applies to the Spanish spoken in Spain, that you only have this sound when it's between two vowels. Well, consonantal, that's easy. All the consonants that you know are consonantal, but well, I must confess that these features, some of them don't completely agree with it. I mean, phonologists are not like phoneticians. Phoneticians record things, and the digits, the numbers tells you what the fundamental frequency is, formant is. But in phonology, sometimes they have different theories, so they treat features slightly differently. 就是说，有一些 phonologists 可能会觉得，像你们看那个 glottal stop. Let's look at the first row, consonantal. The glottal stop is considered minus consonantal. Well, we usually consider it as a consonant, right? But it's because it's pronounced in a very strange position, and then usually have glottal stop whenever you start saying things. So it tends to categorize the glottal stop and the h sound as a minus consonantal. So focus on the regular consonants. The last plus one is the R sound. It should be the upside down R. Why don't we just change it? 最后那个 R 有没有？ If we're talking about American English, it's the upside down R, 倒过来那个 R. 这个是 trill. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so that's the last plus consonantal. In terms of w and ya, they're glides. They are not considered consonantal, which kind of makes sense because it's 你们说他们是半母音嘛, so they don't have it's not plus consonantal. Now, vocalic, that's a new feature we're going to introduce. So vocalic, any of these consonants are vocalic? No. How about you flip the page? Oh, all the vowels are vocalic. So yes, those are vocalics. So our intervocalic rule only apply to vowels. If it's glide, sorry. Okay? Now, sonorant, you know. Sonorant and obstruents are two different camps. Okay? So, sonorant 你们知道了哈，就是那些nasal 啊 glide 啊 liquid。你看 sonorant, you have sonorants all the way through stops, fricatives, affricates, and when you hit nasals, sorry, anything after nasal, they're sonorant. But h and glottal stop, they are fricative and stops, so they are minus sonorant. Now, voiced, that's easy. Now, I want to talk to you about that upside down W. Can you look at that upside down W after the real W? That's when will you have that sound? Do you know? When you say where. When you spell where, it's WH, right? But you're not saying where. You have that h. It's a kind of combination with the w and the h sound. So it's where. So people use that upside down W to denote that voiceless w. Where. 你们想一想，你们说 where 的时候，那个 w 有真的 truly voiced 吗？ Where. In some cases, you devoice it. That's why the upside down W is minus voiced. So voiced should be a very easy feature for you. 就是反正只要有震动，它就是 plus voiced. 没有震动就不是。How about labial? M sound. Is it plus labial or minus labial? Plus. If you use your lip, that's labial. How about f as in food? Plus labial, you use your lower lip, not the upper lip, right? Food. You use the lower lip. 所以 labial 就是有用到唇的，不管是双唇还是单唇，都是 labial. That's easy. Cornalos, you use your tongue tip or tongue blade to do the pronunciation， 就是你用到舌尖跟舌尖后面的那个 blade 去发音的时候 ，Do you use your tongue tip when you say b sound? No, but t, d. So why don't we go over it? You definitely use the tip of your tongue when you do t and d, and s and z. Th and the. Do you use the tip of your tongue to do the? Yes, you need that tip to be in between your upper and lower teeth. 所以 the 跟 the 也是 sh 是用到比较 blade 的部分 sh and j, ch and j. They're using the blade part of your tongue. How about m sound? Nah, no tongue involved. M. How about n? Yes, n. But ingma, Do you use the tip or blade to do the sound? It's the back of your tongue that's working, right? 就没有了。Nasal 里头只有呢是真的用到舌头的。Okay, what else? L, yes, r, yes, ya, barely, right? Ya 就是你的那个舌头的上面要去靠近你的 palate 那个 area。Okay, so these are the coronals. So coronals are those sounds that you produce with the tip of your tongue or the blade of your tongue. Now you're going to find anterior. Okay, why don't you mark anterior with coronal? 这两个真的很像。Anterior and coronal. Anterior, definition for anterior is you also use the tip or blade of your tongue, and it has to be in front of your alveolar ridge. Anterior 就是前端的意思嘛，就是所有你的 alveolar ridge 前面发声的都叫 anterior。所以这个时候 bilabial 就会被放进去了，因为你的 bilabial 的发音的位置是不是在你的 alveolar ridge 前面？ Yeah, so all your bilabials are plus 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 plus. 科 and 歌就没有了，科 and 歌是在 anterior 在后面嘛 velar， 所以 f v s 哇这些全都是 sh j。 OK， 问题来了 sh j sh， 你们还记得 place of articulation for sh 吗？ sh， 它是 alveolar palatal， 是 alveolar 跟 palatal 中间。所以它已经不在 alveolar ridge 前面了 ，alveolar ridge 含 alveolar ridge 哦 ，OK。I know this is a bit arbitrary, so but you just need to remember coronals and anteriors are there are overlaps in coronal and anterior, but for anterior it has alveolar ridge. So all you have to do is remember the place of articulation of these sounds, and you should be able to do the plus and minus feature. And then back. Back is the back of your tongue and behind. So k and g are back. That's no problem, right? Anything after k and g. Do we have anything that's after in terms of place of articulation? 你看那个 plus 就知道，接下来哪里有 plus？ 也是 yes. And then why is w? 你觉得 w 的 place of articulation 是哪里呀？w 好像是 bilabial， 对不对 ？But the back of your tongue is also doing something. 因为didn't I tell you that the w sound sounds like the sound or in vowel? 我们是不是这样说 ？But the vowel actually, when you're pronouncing the vowel, the back of your tongue need to be raised. And your lips need to be rounded. So it actually have double articulation. You need to do both to pronounce that sound. That's why that the w sound is also considered back. And same as the voiceless counterparts. And then for the h and glottal stop because it's in your glottal region, so it's considered back. So for continuance, it means the air, when the air comes out from your lung, it was never stopped. When that's the case, they are continuants. Now, it's a continuant. 是啊，因为你就一直让它出去，虽然你挡着它，可是它是出去的。But it's b sound, a continuant. You stop it. It's ch. Is that a continuant? Affricates has a stop. So by definition, your affricates are non-continuant. Okay, so this is easy. How about nasals? Unfortunately, the air is stopped in the mouth. You can claim that it goes out from the nose, but well, it's categorized as non-continuant because you do an oral stop. Okay. Now, delay release is easy. There are only two sounds that has delay release, ch and j, because they have a stop. But when they're letting go of that closure, they did it reluctantly. So they delay the release of the closure. Okay, strident. Unfortunately, you have to remember. Just remember, stridents are the noisy obstruents. Noisy sibilants. I'm sorry. Noisier sibilants. Do you guys remember your sibilants? Yeah, noisy obstruents. Noisy obstruents. There are sibilants, stridents. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can think of them as sibilants, I guess. Strident. Okay, so stridents are those who make noisy sounds when you're doing the frication. F, v, s, z. So let me just ask you, my statement earlier, are sibilants the same as strident? 你看上面画 strident plus 的有几个？1、2、3、8个。可是我们一般说的 sibilants 有6个。Which two are surfacing? F and V. Yeah. So, well, you can just remember strident include the sibilants, but with F and V added to the category. How many laterals? Awesome. Oh, instead of saying awesome. Okay. Oh, they're vowels. Okay, but they're all minus consonantal, right? They're vowels. And they're all plus vocalic. Okay, the first 4 you should know. Guys, all vowels in English are voiced. Okay, so they're all plus voiced. And they are all sonorant, they are all vocalic, and they're all minus consonantal. Okay? That you have to remember. First 4, but that's like every single one of them are the same. Here's an exercise. Here's an exercise. Can you identify the following natural class of sounds? Just tell me, what do these 6 have in common? Can you use the features we learned according to this one? Can you do this 3? Yeah, and they're all strident, but strident include f and v, right? So you need to think of another feature. So you use 2 features to distinguish these 6 sounds from others.